Welcome everyone to our 5th day, our halfway point. You did it. You went halfway. I'm so proud of you. And Chris, what are you doing on here? Chris had a birthday dinner tonight.
Well, the place we were supposed to go to didn't have it was closed down. Like it was shut down for the night, and there was a sign on the door saying whatever. So we went to a different place, and I had to improvise there. So I had chicken and some other things there. I hope it seemed pretty good. So
Very good. Well, happy birthday.
thank you.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
We should sing.
No.
Oh, it might not be good.
But we do all wish you a very happy birthday. Okay, so I want to start by, you're getting a million happy birthdays on the chat. I want to start with a presentation. It's a little long, but I want you to stick with me because this is like the meat of why a lot of people are here. Not everyone's here for to change their eating patterns, but a lot of you are. And so we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of that, and then we're going to talk about what's possible. And do not go through this thinking, well, I can't do that and I can't do that. Just hear what is offered, and then along your path you might pick up one or two of these and it might work for you. And so just listen with those kind of ears. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Okay, great. Okay, so we're going to talk about how to stop overeating. So losing weight is a series of decisions. It's conscious decisions. You have your evolved brain, which is in front. This is your evolved brain. Your primitive brain is your brain stem. That developed first in our evolution. And our primitive brain was our survival brain. So that is often taking over when we get tired, because our evolved brain is like, I've had enough. It's been a long work day, right? We have our primitive brain, which is urgency and repetitiveness and instant gratification ensures our survival. It's self-persevering, and it does the feeding, the fighting, the fleeing, and the fun stuff. Our evolved brain is our impulse control. It's our problem solving, our motor function. It's where we think, plan, and reason. It's our decision making. Choosing to lose weight comes from this part of the brain. There are two reasons we overeat. It's either because our brain gets hijacked or we have unprocessed emotions. And we're going to talk about the first one. So anything happens in your life, lots of things happen in your life, and it's either good or it's bad. And whatever that is, that's a trigger for something else. So if you're having a really great day, you might celebrate. And that's a trigger that good days, we celebrate. If you have someone yell at you, you might think that's really bad. And that would be a trigger to try to find some kind of comfort. And so you would do something that makes you feel better if you've had a bad day or if someone yells at you, right? So for instance, if you eat ice cream, that stimulates the dopamine receptors in your brain. We talked a little bit about this before. Dopamine is your reward center. It is the part of your brain that makes you want things, not achieve them. Once you achieve them, you just want them more. But it's that center in your brain that makes you want things. And the more it gets tapped on, the more it gets stimulated, the more you want something, the more it drives you to get it. So eating ice cream. First time you eat ice cream, that feels amazing. You know, you see those little kids with the first time they put ice cream in their face and they're like, give it to me all. I just want all of that. And what that's doing is it's going up to the brain, that taste buds, the stimulus, that sugar, it stimulates that dopamine receptor. And it says, I feel really good right now. Do that more so I can keep feeling good. I want lots of that. And your memory gets placed that the next time you want to feel good, you're thinking, oh, ice cream made me feel really good. I want to go do that. And so you start doing this habit. Every time you want to feel good and you reach for ice cream, you've developed a habit. Now, if you do this at the same time every night, like after dinner, while you're watching Netflix, then you've gotten into a really bad habit because now you associate the whole thing with nighttime, Netflix, feeling good, eating ice cream, right? Ice cream, feeling good. Then you have the cravings. You're starting to crave ice cream even when there's no stimulus because you just want to feel good. You want that dopamine hit. It's like, where's that hit I want? The next time you see ice cream, you crave it, even if you're hungry. It makes you feel good. Oh, let's move this way. And this is what leads to a habit. Your brain gets hijacked by these dopamine receptors. Dopamine's amazing. We talked about this before. Dopamine is what makes you get up out of your chair to do anything. If you want to have a paycheck, you have to get up, get dressed and go to work. All that is your dopamine telling you to get up and get out because you want that paycheck. Wanting anything is dopamine. Once you stimulate it, it's fine. We're good at stimulating it. It's necessary, but it's when we overstimulate it that it hijacks your brain. Then it's making decisions for you. You eat the ice cream, you feel super good, right? Then you start craving it. And if you're sad, you know that ice cream is going to make you happy. If you're happy, you know that ice cream is going to make you happier. So you keep doing the ice cream or whatever it is that is your vice. The three main things that will stimulate those dopamine receptors so much that it will hijack your brain and make you make bad choices is sugar, flour, and alcohol. In the presence of those, when they've already hit your brain, as soon as you take that first bite, it's so much easier to take the next one and the next one, right? You go to a buffet and you see all those desserts laid out and you're like, I'm just going to have one. And you go and you have that one. And as soon as that dopamine hits your brain, you shut off that frontal thinking. And now that brain says, I want more. And so it's hard to stop at that point. To stop this kind of cycle, what I'm suggesting you do is choosing erythritol, monk fruit, stevia, a limited amount of fruit. I put up the pudding here because we talked about the pudding recipe yesterday. There's many different alternatives that can make you feel good. And like Beth said, it can feel amazing to have dessert because you're choosing to make it a treat. You're choosing to make it special. It's not going to hit those dopamine receptors, but once you are deprogrammed from this overindulgence and this over wanting and this over desire, then your brain, your frontal thinking can actually put something else in its place. Like, gosh, I really enjoy my family and the way we're talking to each other and the games we're playing and even the movie we're watching. Like, I can appreciate so much more when my brain hasn't gotten hijacked to just want more food and shut up over there. I need to eat my food, right? The second way that we overeat is when we're buffering, when we don't want to feel what we're feeling, when we have unprocessed emotion. And we do this a lot because show me a hand of when you were taught how to process your emotions when you're like 7, 8, 9. Like, who taught us that? Where was that class, right? That would have been a really great class to have, to learn how to process our emotions and like feel our emotions, know that they're just emotions. They're thoughts in our head making us feel things. And we don't need to do something to make us feel better just to not feel those feelings. Unprocessed emotions, that leads to stress. Stress leads to seeking comfort. Seeking comfort leads to looking for a dopamine hit. And there's lots of ways to do it. Food, alcohol, drugs, caffeine, smoking, video games, social media, TikTok, Instagram. How often do we get set? Like, it's just stimulating that dopamine because it's like, what's next? What's next? What's next? And it really takes a step. You have to take a step back to see that you've got sucked in again. What we can do instead to make us feel better, which also stimulates our dopamine receptors, but in a much more gentle way, is exercise, meditate, listen to music, and the most important is process our emotions. So what does that mean? And keep in mind that you're going to be stuck in the loop until you actually look at your emotions, but just make a decision to consider that you're going to look at those emotions, that when someone says something to you that doesn't feel good, you'll sit with it instead of doing something else to just like make it go away. So being present with the vibrations in our body and not run from them or be reactive. You want to feel your feelings. So there are 6 steps that Brooke Castillo likes to impart on these. And so I've been doing them. She taught Corinne Crabtree. I follow Corinne Crabtree. And so these are some of the things I've been doing for over a year now. And Laura's not on the call, but she is with me on this. And she's been doing it. She's been my accountability partner for over a year now. So the 6 steps are write, eat, allow, reward, and track. First, you want to write. So when you're feeling feelings, the best way to get them out of your amygdala, which is where we store our memories and our angst, is in the amygdala, because when something's bothering us, we almost want to remember it because it feels harmful to us in our primitive brain. So we want to run or fight or figure out how to not do that again. So to figure out how to not to do that again, we have to remember that it felt bad. And so we're going to repeat it. We're going to regurgitate it in that brain of ours unless we write it and get it out of the amygdala onto paper. So talking to a therapist also helps, but this can be something you do all the time, any time of the day. Write down. Did you lose me for a minute?
Yeah,
Yeah, sorry, I was just gonna text you.
So Tim's working in the basement. If he cuts off my power, I'm gonna have a lot of unprocessed emotion.
Yeah, get your notepad ready.
Right. So writing. So
but no,
what?
but no, I.
So writing. So here she talks about writing down what you're eating. First, I want you to write down what is bothering you. Do a journal where every time.
Wait, Stace,
Yeah.
I think when you left and came back, it stopped recording.
Oh.
And we don't see your screen anymore.
Okay, hang on.
I see it recording.
Yeah, it is recording, but
But you don't see the screen? I just share my screen again. Hold on.
yeah.
Hang on. Okay, we're back. Okay.
Perfect.
Okay. So the first thing is write. Now, we're going to talk about writing down food, but this is writing down emotions. So to get your unprocessed emotion out on paper is one of the most helpful things you can do. So in my practice, one of the things I do is if you've ever been through this with me, I do something called pernicious synaptic patterns. It's bad thought patterns. And what I do is I have you tell me all your feelings. If something has happened to you, I say, tell me all your feelings, and we muscle test you for all these negative feelings that you feel around the subject matter. And then by talking about it and getting it out, I press some acupuncture points. And then oftentimes people feel so much better just because they process that emotion in a way by speaking it. Speak it, write it, get it out of your system, and that helps you process those emotions. But for overeating, one of the things we know is that if you write down what you're going to eat ahead of time, it actually helps decrease urges. Write down what you're going to eat before making decisions based on your urges and things that you think are going to make you feel good. If you write it down early enough before you have cravings and you stick to them, that's one of the ways we stop overeating, because we're not eating out of emotion or desire. We're eating based on our prefrontal lobe, not our primitive. Our primitive brain says we want instant gratification. Our goal is to stimulate dopamine receptors to give comfort, where our prefrontal cortex plans ahead of time with the most educated decisions and knows what it takes to reach your goals. I gave you this planner, and this is a wonderful planner to use, and you're welcome to use it. And this is something that you've already done to plan a lot of your meals. And I saw you use it, which I'm really happy about. But it's really a great tool for you. And on the right side of the page, we haven't talked about that before, but put down your goals for the day, what might get in the way of them, and what you can do about them, whether or not it's food-related goals or just goals in general. Saying what you're grateful for and why you feel you're worth it today. Because we oftentimes bash ourselves for not being who we want to be or not feeling the way we want to feel. And here's a way to get over that. Flour, sugar, food sensitivities, and inflammatory foods are what we want to avoid. So we want to avoid the flour and the sugar because it hits those dopamine receptors and it hijacks your brain. We want to avoid food sensitivities because it causes inflammation in our body. We want to avoid inflammatory foods because, once again, they cause inflammation in our body. Processed foods, a lot of vegetable oils, fried foods, definitely fast food and things in boxes and bags. Eat exactly what you planned. When you put it down, eat what is on your plan. Include the foods you know you're going to eat, and practice just being consistent and being accountable to yourself. So when I first started doing this, I put down chocolate, I put down chips, I put down ice cream, I put down all the things I was eating because it was better for me to get in practice of honoring what I was going to say to myself, more so than putting it down and feeling bad about not following my plan, right? And slowly over time, I just upped the ante. I just ate a little bit less of the chips, or I decided I could forgo chips today, but I know I'm going to put them on the next day. So it's really just using your prefrontal cortex to really talk yourself into a better way of eating. Because I know once this 10 days are over, a lot of us are going to go back to some of our bad habits and some of the foods that trigger us. But this is one of the ways you can bring yourself back if you're not under, the guidelines of a cleanse, right? Whenever you have an urge to eat anything off plan, you allow the urge, you allow the emotions that go with it, and sit with it. Sit with the urge, try not to indulge in it, and sit with what the feelings are. Even if you choose to eat it, sit with the feelings that you have around it. It might feel important to eat it or compelling, or you might say, I had a long day, or I was really stressed out, or it was a girls' weekend. Like, it was no big deal. It's just a taste. Like, allow all those feelings to happen so that you know how to do it next time. 100 allowed urges means transformation. So if you can allow yourself an urge and not give into it, that is where the magic happens. So when you give into it, It's fine. You're not wrong. You're not bad. You just gave into an urge. Just acknowledge it. Try to figure out why you did it. Try to use that prefrontal cortex as much as you possibly can to figure it out. But when you don't give in, when you step away, that's when you have to reward yourself. And I have a jar of beads here because doing something physical, our brain likes to have completion. So taking a bead and putting it in a glass jar and hearing it tink down to the glass jar, that actually also stimulates the dopamine receptors. So it makes us feel better. Now, does it feel as good as a chocolate chip cookie? No, but you are training your brain to act differently, right? Tracking your weight. Now, a lot of people do not like to weigh themselves. I too never liked to weigh myself because I get so depressed if it was up, and if it was down, it gave me a reason to overindulge that day. And then it would go up again. And I'd go in this vicious cycle, and it would be really frustrating. And I had all this emotion about it, when really that number on the scale is just data. It just tells you if you're moving in the right direction or you're not. And then you need to shift your sails so that you're going in the right direction again. So get used to seeing the data without making it mean anything about you personally. It's just a number. Listing your urge, and urge is an emotion that intensely drives your action, and know if you reacted to the urge or not. And then repeat. Just repeat doing this until it becomes more of a habit to resist your urges than it is resist and acknowledge why you're having the urges as it is to indulge in the urges. Like this 5 days, guys, in 5 days, you've made so many strides, and you've resisted urges. For 5 days, you've resisted all the urges. That is remarkable, and it's hard. So you've at least proved to yourself that you can do hard things, right? Let me move this over. Oh, goodness. Okay. I keep moving this little bar. There it is. This one goes down here. So the method is easy. Once it becomes a habit, the road there can feel difficult. This felt difficult. I wrote down all the things you guys said that was so hard, because I want you to be able to see how far you've come. I want you to let it feel difficult. We do difficult things all the time. And this is just another difficult thing that you got over, and that you know you can get over. In order to overcome what causes us to overeat, we have to override our primitive brain. We have to allow ourselves to feel uncomfortable. And sometimes our primitive brain fights really hard to avoid that uncomfortableness. The primitive brain is determined to pursue and maintain comfort. Comfort of familiarity, being safe, staying the same, being in a predictable environment, allowing emotions that might feel overwhelming. But there's also comfort in knowing that you can do uncomfortable things. You've already proved it to yourself. You can do hard things. I know you graduated. I know you ran races. I know some of you have been in the military. I know some of you have been lifting weights. I know some of you have gone through childbirth. Those are all really hard things to do. And you all have done something hard. So now we're going to open it up. I think that was the last slide. Yep. We're going to stop sharing. And we're going to talk about that. So would you give me your thoughts on that part, either the brain hijacking or the unprocessed emotion? Where are you in the process? Go for it, Phyllis.
Well, I am so happy that I'm doing this program with all of you. And I have been wanting from day one sweets. And I had quite a bad headache the first day. And I just, moved with it and rested and all that. But from the second day on, as I want something sweet, I'm full. And my body is okay with that. So I have counted, a bunch of times that I haven't moved on urges. And I'm so happy about it. And
Awesome.
I feel so much better already. So that's where I am
That's
with it.
awesome. And I hope you feel accomplished because
Oh, I do feel really good and a significant comfort in knowing that this is a good way and it's here available.
Mhm.
So it's really nice. I thank you.
Thank you. That's awesome. Who else?
I was telling my mother earlier today how going through this process, how hard it was, but how good I feel. Like I wake up and my knees bother me because, I've had knee surgeries and, but it feels like you feel light, or I don't know what it is, like free, but in the back of my mind, I keep saying, well, I need to learn, or like you were saying, like retrain my brain with the cravings for the sweets, because it's like, do I really want it? Or I don't know what that is. I need to learn to process that. But this process so far, I just feel really good. So I was telling her, I know I need to stay the course and make this like my eating style. But I know with the bread and the sweets, it's going to be hard, but I told her, I said, I'm going to try my darndest to keep this going, because
Right.
the way I feel is the payoff.
Excellent. That's excellent. Yeah, we're going to talk all about what's next for everyone in the next few days. So stay tuned for that. Because I do want to help you transition to getting back into normal eating patterns when you're not having the shake twice a day, right? So some people have interest in continuing this program with the shakes, and that's perfectly fine. A lot of times we do this for 21 days, 21 to 28 actually. So that's always an option. Who else? Vicky.
Well, one of the things I haven't really struggled with it, excuse me, but my husband is definitely not on any of my eating habits the last 5 days. So his food is still in the refrigerator, and I'm actually still fixing him things. So for me to like not even be even craving those, that to me is accomplishment for me.
That's excellent. Good job. Do you see how you just 5 days of taking yourself off of these severely dopamine stimulating foods has transformed the way you're living your life? Like your cravings has decreased, not everyone's, but a lot of your cravings have decreased. You're feeling better. The inflammation has decreased. It's just really like, I want you to just make sure you remember this, because just like those habit brain, I want this to become your habit. I want feeling good to become your habit. So now we'll ask, does anyone have any questions moving forward?
So when we start talking about the transition and moving away from like this strict regimen, would it mean that we could have like small amounts of cheese going forward, or is cheese and dairy always like taboo?
No, it's
And
not always
also-
taboo. So cheese is something that is very inflammatory to a lot of people, which is why we moved it.
Okay.
It also stimulates dopamine receptors in a way, especially if you have tied it with celebration or relaxation, right? Remember, you like tying it together with something that made you feel good, and now you're like looking for that dopamine hit. So anything we eat is going to increase dopamine. So you just don't want to get tied into like Parmesan on your like marinara sauce. Like, yes, if it's not causing you inflammation, then it's something that you can totally use. But one thing I want you to pay attention to is, like, just like Valerie said her knees feel better in the morning, I want you to pay attention to what part of your body feels better being on this. So much so that if you start eating those other foods, see if those symptoms come back, because that's going to be an indication that those are inflammatory foods for you and or a sensitivity. So a lot of this was kind of like a food elimination diet to see what you're sensitive to, right?
I made some chili for us, and I didn't put beans in it because I didn't have them. And we both, John and I both determined that we preferred the chili without beans, which is such a like chili thing. Like you have to have beans in your chili, but we don't really like them. And it gives him a lot of gastric issues. So he is like, this is great. Like I didn't miss them. I feel better because I'm getting like, he loves chilies and like things like that anyway. He can still have his hot sauce on it. He can still do all this other stuff, but he has none of the negative after effects in the uncomfortable belly and all that. And he's like, he didn't really think about it until this, that it was the beans. I mean, he always suspected it was because beans do that to you type thing, but I think it really is something. And for me, I could take it or leave it. I usually add them so it fills you up more.
Right. So that's an excellent observation. A lot of these foods cause gastric distress. Cheese causes binding and constipation, and it can cause a lot of GI issues. A lot of people are sensitive to dairy. It can cause sinus issues. So if you have clear sinuses now and you start getting stuffy, if you go back to dairy, that's something to watch, right? And any of these foods, like corn is another one that a lot of people are sensitive to, especially their bellies. So watch when you add corn back in.
That I said that to him today. He said, let's make a list of everything that we're not eating. So when we eat it, let's pay attention to if it's like upsetting our stomachs or whatever. Because I'm like the bloat girl. I haven't been bloated since this whole thing started. So I'm like in heaven right now.
That's fabulous.
Yeah. But the things that we do are like taco night. So you're having corn, or if we're doing shawarma things, we're having pita with our hummus. So it'll be interesting to see which ones of those can maybe stay and what has to stay off. And I suspect it'll be corn, just because I just think it's a biggie, bad one,
Right. Yeah. Everyone's going to have their thing.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? No. Okay. Anything else you want to talk about tonight? Two things. Okay. I can't hear you though.
Part 2 of my question was alcohol. I don't think that I'm that big a drinker, but the idea of never like having my, wine on a Saturday night seems a little a deprivation, like the celebratory piece of wine, the mellow, the light buzz, whatever. Maybe that's not an issue for a lot of people here. I wouldn't know. I don't want to speak for anybody, but if that's a dopamine and a high receptor thing, like, is it, so if I drink it one Saturday night, is it going to, you're saying, stimulate me to want more? Whereas I feel like I feel like I'm pretty good with that. Like I have it, then I know I don't want to do anymore because one, it's calories, it's sugar. Like I know I don't want to be excessive with it.
Right. So with all these foods, right, you're going to be experimenting. Some of you are going to get triggered and go down the rabbit hole and have a really hard time pulling yourself back. And some of you will be able to have a drink once in a while and be able to grab that frontal brain thinking and say, one is one, and I am not having two. And I'm going to feel whatever I'm feeling, knowing that it's going to stimulate those dopamine receptors, knowing that I'm going to want more. I'm not going to want to keep my word to myself because my brain is going to be hijacked. And so I'm just going to be my word because I said I'm going to have one or two, whatever you say it is, right? You can even get drunk for all. I mean, it's like your life, right? I'm not rolling your life, and I'm not even telling you what to do with your life. I'm just saying, pay attention. And are you getting to your goals? Like what are your goals? And are you getting there? Like if we were talking about video gaming, like this could be totally not about food at all. This whole thing could have been about a video game detox or even like electronic detox. Like how often are we stuck in our phones? Could you go 24 hours without looking at your phone or a screen? Raise your hand if you could go 24 hours solid. I know Miriam can, because she does.
And I actually did not have a cell phone for almost a year because it broke, and then I got another one and it broke and I didn't have one. And I was so happy. Everyone's like, how do you live without it? I'm like, I'm here, you're talking to me. Obviously I'm alive.
Right.
And it was amazing. And my kids actually forced me to get one. They were upset. I was traveling, but I just have a basic phone. I don't have an iPhone, and I use it when I need it. I don't like talking on it when I'm home. I tell people to call my house phone. I'm very old fashioned, but it's wonderful.
Right. That's good. So some of you can, and some of you can't. I get that. But like, I'm just saying, we're talking about anything that stimulates those dopamine receptors and makes us want more, right? That dopamine receptor, it's all about more. It's not about getting the reward. It's about wanting more. Susan, were you gonna say something?
Yeah, so my experience has been a little bit different with this because my husband and I have been consuming many of these foods and avoiding many of the things that we've been encouraged to avoid. But I think, and I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself, perhaps our portion control is where it's been a struggle for both of us. And so even eating the right foods, not having the dairy, not having the sugar, not having the grains, not having a lot of the things that we've been avoiding. So I haven't felt like I've been missing out on something, but I find it's difficult to process the emotion of the frustration of not losing the weight quickly enough. And that's where I'm struggling a little bit, because the way I'm eating during this plan is really, really similar to the way I've been eating for several years.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
In the last 5 days, have you lost any weight?
Not a lot.
Nope, that wasn't the question.
2 pounds.
Okay, who here thinks 2 pounds is significant for
In
5
5 days?
days?
That's amazing.
Susan, it's really great, actually.
Thank you.
It
I have
really
that
is.
same.
It's just that when knowing that I have a certain amount to lose, albeit, and I'm not discounting it, I feel an incredible accomplishment. I exercise wonderfully. I push myself. I've avoided a number of temptations while I've been out that normally I might have given in to. Because I work too hard. Why would I want to sabotage myself?
Yeah.
So it just feels like it's moving at snail pace.
But it's not. It's actually working exactly how it should. If you were to lose any more weight, in 5 days, then you're also losing water weight. You might even be losing muscle mass. This is really a great way to lose weight because you're also recognizing, you even just said that you're not indulging in some urges that you normally would. Even those little things that you're not doing are making a difference. And you're right. So we're expecting a lot for this, for all the effort we're putting into this. We would like transformation, right? I totally get that. But any movement in the right direction is movement in the right direction. And there are other things to consider. We haven't talked about hormones. We haven't talked about stress. All those impact our ability to lose weight, right? And we haven't even talked about that. We haven't talked about estrogen, progesterone, right?
That stress component is a big one. I had a terrible circumstance today where, so I tutor students, and of course I'm tutoring online, and thank you all for listening to this little ordeal. And I've had a parent not pay me for 2 months. And I've had 3 what feel like bogus emails or texts. She was going to come by my house and pay me today. And by 5 o'clock, still had not. My husband left to play tennis. I've been true to me, but I am angry. And I don't like even the stress that I'm feeling with the anger with this parent who still hasn't paid me. And I don't want to do anything to hurt myself by making a poor choice.
Right. So
I'm thrilled we have this Zoom meeting because it kept me focused.
right, because we can validate your feelings. Like you should be feeling all your feelings. You should feel angry and frustrated and not honored, right? Not honored for what you're doing for their child, for God's sakes, right?
Well, I feel like I'm being taken advantage of.
Right.
And yet I can't say anything to her. I don't want to hurt the child.
Right. I get that. So you're going to figure it out, Susan. You will. You're going to figure out what the right balance is, or what the right thing to say is, or what the right avenue is.
But the good thing was, with my husband not in the house, and there are other things, I just was angry. That's all. But
Yeah.
I think that stress then does become an obstacle to my really functioning better.
Right. I agree. I agree. So someone said, wait, I'm losing weight at a much faster pace. What about me? And is this wrong? Is this? No, it's perfectly fine. You know, different people have different roadblocks in their biochemistry. Different people have different emotional things that are happening to them. Susan's having a lot of stress right now. That could, but let yourself just be in the program. Just be inquisitive of what your body's doing. And don't worry about losing muscle, losing water weight. It's all good. Any muscle that you lose, you're going to gain right back as soon as you start lifting heavy things again. So I wanted you to use this time to let your body do its thing, knowing you could lose weight without working out. This can happen without working out. Working out is about 20%. That 80%, that's what you put in your mouth, and that's what you're doing. I saw some other chatting things come through. No. Okay. Anyone else?
I also have a very similar sort of situation to Susan, where my husband and I have been eating a very particular way, pretty much keto, like protein and vegetables, not even fruit, no grain, no dairy, nothing, the last almost 6 months. And I feel like I've been stuck where I was usually like, I could lose more weight and I'm stuck, and it's frustrating. And then also the portion control part, sometimes I'm eating my amount of chicken that I'm allowed to have now, but sometimes I'm like, but I want a little more, I'm still a little bit hungry. So it's a very similar thing. So I haven't weighed myself yet, and since we started, but I'm curious, if anything's changed in the last 5 days. But I very, very similar to Susan, like a very similar type of, situation.
And it's okay if you don't lose weight too. That's okay too. You are making yourself healthier by removing things that are known triggers. Gluten is so inflammatory to the GI system that most people shouldn't eat it. Most people it causes some kind of inflammation. Some people can get away with it. And some people can get away with it for a period of time. But if you have arthritis, take away gluten. If you have skin conditions, take away gluten. If you're having foggy head, take away gluten. It affects all those places, and especially your GI system. It's really hard. It mucks up your ability to absorb nutrients. So try to keep that one at a minimum. Other comments?
I'm going to chime in really quickly. I was thinking more as you were talking the other day, just because diabetes runs in my family, that me regulating things better now might help me in the future. So that's what I was kind of looking at
That's
too.
awesome. Yes.
But that's just my take on it.
No, so that's being very proactive, and bravo. I actually started going into nutrition because my mom and dad both had diabetes and heart issues. And they had come from, like, when we had SnackWells, when they took away all the fat to replace it with all the sugar. And then my parents, their health went downhill, and I got to watch that. And it was something you just can't pull back from when you're a kid and you're trying to coach your parents, right? So I'm coaching all you. Anything else? Okay.
No, and you're doing a great job, Dr. Stacy.
Well, thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Listen, Vicky actually brought up a really wonderful thing that we're going to do. So when we start talking about, I think I said on Thursday, when we talk about creating your own plan for your future, then we're going to talk about restaurants and dining out. So I love to dine out. Jill and I love to dine out. And so we're going to talk about how to make better decisions when you are dining out, when you choose to, like having that experience of dining out without really sabotaging yourself, right? And sometimes you might choose to sabotage, totally okay. But we're going to talk about all of that on Thursday. Okay, guys, I'm going to stick around a little bit longer if you need anything. But you guys have a wonderful night, and I'll see you tomorrow.
Do you want me to do the giveaways?
Yes. Yeah, we lots of prizes.
We actually kind of have a lot because I wasn't here last night, so we didn't
Right.
do them last
And
night.
this time, make sure people know what they're getting so that there's no confusion.
Well, I don't know what they're getting because
Oh.
I numbered all the items.
I saw that
And
everything.
then-
I knew everyone had a name and a number already.
And then everything had, and then I just put a number by their name. So I don't even know what you get. So
Okay.
when I post those pictures, your number's already attached to the item. You don't pick from the picture.
Well, we'll
I
put names
posted.
on it so you know.
Okay. So last night's winners were Liz, Mary Lynn, and Debbie. And then tonight is Susan, Valerie, and Brenda.
Yay.
Yay. So
So Beth asked about a good gluten-free pasta. So so we were just talking about those Egg Life, right, wraps, that if you cut them into really thin strips and you put them in, boil them in a little broth, and then you can use them in any noodle dish.
Oh,
So that would be a really good gluten-free option for noodles. Okay.
What about like the chickpea pasta or the lentil pasta as
So-
gluten-free?
Right. Remember.
Not for now. Not for now. I thought she was asking in
Correct.
general.
Right. So moving forward, that is a better option than any gluten. Absolutely. But yes, if we're talking about pastas, yes.
I thought
Those
she
would be
was
better.
talking about after, is not now. Sorry.
No, but any gluten-free pasta, I mean, we can talk about those, but yeah. Very good. Good
How
questions. guys.
soon, how soon would we see a difference if, hey, I'm having an issue with gluten and, oh, wow, my knee doesn't hurt. So it might be the gluten or the dairy or the whatever that I've taken out now. How long would it be before I would see a difference?
Well, it could be a day, it could be a week.
So by the end of this 10 days, if I'm still have the same problem with my knee. then
Oh,
it's not
taking
the
it
gluten.
out? I thought you said meant putting it back in. So if you've noticed that you're in less pain already, or you're going to be in less pain by the end of the 10 days, then that's something significant. But going off of gluten, it can take a significant amount of time to notice a change if you have arthritis or joint inflammation. So it can take, I think, Marcy, you went off gluten for a long time, didn't you?
Well, I lowered it, but I never was able to go significantly off of it.
Gotcha. Yes. Any
So-
little bit makes a difference. So now that you have, it will be interesting to see in 10 days what that feels like to you.
Well, is 10 days going to be long enough, or does 10 days mean, well, that's not, that it's still not long enough?
So if you have even a slight amount of decrease in pain, then I'd say keep going. If you are out of pain, I'd say 10 days was enough. If you're not out of pain, there's no definite time for any, because it's all very individual from person to person, but I'd say 2 weeks to 3 months is what I would say. I know, I didn't think you'd like that answer.
Okay, well, I appreciate the honesty.
Yeah. Very good. Oh, can you muscle test for gluten sensitivity? So I do muscle test for sensitivities. I don't always catch them though. So I'm going to say that it shows up a lot of the time, but sometimes it sneaks through and you're still sensitive even if you test strong.
So I just want to share something.
Yeah.
And I thought of it when Susan was speaking about being frustrated a little bit about, the scale barely moved. But this can go for many things. I heard the other day, this guy, I forgot I hear all kinds of stuff and read all kinds of stuff. So don't ask me where I got it. But it said, okay, let's just say you go to the gym and you lift weights and you did squats and you ran around the track and you did all that like mad for an hour, came home, stripped, looked in the mirror, no change. You're going to go out tomorrow. You're going to do the exact same thing. You're going to come home, strip, look in the mirror. You're not going to see anything. And you're going to do this day 3, day 4. You're not going to see anything because it takes time for that to happen.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's about consistency. So anyone else? I know you guys are sticking around like, what else is someone going to say? What else is someone going to ask? You got to ask something.
Well, I'm going to leave. So have a lovely night, guys.
Good night, Mars.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
See you Tuesday. Good night.
Take care.
You too. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
All right. Thank you so much. Have a
You're
good night.
welcome. Good night, Miriam.
Bye.
Good night.
It's so
Phil,
nice. It's so nice. I'm just really glad that you're doing this, and
Thank you.
it's really very, very cool.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I'm so glad you're part of it.
Me too. And I want to continue too. So,
Oh, excellent.
because
Yeah.
I do have a question. It just popped in.
Sure.
Is the Renew powder the detox, or is it the supplements?
The Renew plus the Advocare. The Advocare is the bitter stuff that they couldn't put into the Renew.
Okay. So it's without the Advocare, then it's a
Nope.
just a
the-
good,
Nope. The
Yeah.
Renew also has detoxification properties, and you could do it on its own, but together makes the complete detoxification.
gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. Have a good night.
You too.
I'll see you Wednesday.
Oh, sounds good. How are you feeling, by the way?
I feel a lot better. Something around, I think whatever my kids had, it's just a hard time.